Come here, let's say what is up.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Ready? Okay, right here. Say, what is up, everybody?
What is up, everybody?
Say, welcome back.
Welcome back.
To another episode of Burndown.
I can't say that.
You can't say that? All right.
Crazy mother.
What is up, everybody? My name is Dane Thompson. Welcome back to another episode of Burndown. So in this episode, we're going to do things a little differently. This is basically a Q&A video for those of you that submitted questions via Instagram. So thank you very much for that. And the reason I wanted to sit and do this is we're getting close to 1,000 subscriber mark here on YouTube. So thank you very much. And if you cross over on Instagram too, that is wonderful and amazing. Thank you very much for following and supporting me. But I want to do a little more personal stuff because on Instagram it's kind of like a day-to-day thing, and then YouTube I'm always showcasing some project that I'm working and thrashing on, trying to get to some sort of event or go do burnouts or race, and I explain what I'm doing on the car, but I don't really have a lot of personal interaction. It's usually like, hey, watch me do this, hey, watch me do that. So this is a chance for me to sit down and answer some questions that you guys may or may not have. Obviously there's a couple of them, and we'll start here. We'll answer these. And then in the future, if it works out, you guys got more questions, we'll do it again from time to time, just so you guys can kind of keep in touch with me and I don't know, learn a bit about what it is I'm doing or how I'm doing stuff, or even the things that I like or don't like. Anyway, we're gonna jump into it, and I'm probably gonna butcher all these screen names, so you're welcome, but here we go. So the first question is from Joshua Ryan Nelson. All one word, kind of hard to read, but I got it. What was your first car? So my first car was a 1974 Ford Gran Torino that it was my stepfather paid $500 for it, and he gifted it to me. I think it was a graduation gift from high school. Needless to say, it was broken. Maybe it was a pre-graduation gift, and it was broken. It didn't run, so I cut my teeth on that and learned how to do actually lifters in an intake manifold, and then struggled with firing order. That was my first go at firing order that I got wrong several times before the thing actually ran. But yeah, it was for those of you that don't know what a 74 Ford Gran Torino is, they are like probably 62 feet long, 62 and a half feet. Majority of that, like 3/4 of that is hood. So it is this really long, basically hood car. Like most of it is hood, and it's very ugly, and it's 74. So the bumpers stick out like another 2 feet off of that. So we're at like, what, 77 feet? And so it's all hood, and then it has like a little top, and then it kind of just drops off. It's almost like those Cadillacs that they made in like the 80s, where it's like all hood, and then it just like does this humpback weird thing. Very ugly car. It had the vinyl top that was separating, so it kind of looked like a balding guy where they got the hair on the sides, and then it's like slick on the top, but mine was my car, so it had like this unfolding, rotting Landau top. So it had exposed rust, so it was blue with rust, and then the black top that was coming off. But it ran. It did have a V8, so that was a plus. It had some like Kragers, like shiny mirror rims. Like they're completely solid chrome discs, and not like Moon Eyes ones. They were like a rim, so you could still see the lug nuts on it. And it had like 20-inch glass packs, so it sounded like a boat docking when you fire it up and run. It'd be like bloop 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 down the street. But I got it and it was broken. I cut my teeth. I learned how to do some work on that thing. I actually learned how to do lifters really well in it because I used to chew up lifters, and I would have to do those on the side of the road. The floats would stick all the time, so I'd like have to pop the hood and beat on it because it would just be leaking fuel everywhere. I'm surprised that car didn't burn to the ground. But yeah, I had it and I drove it for quite a while. I used to be terrified every time I got in it because it would just die and eat itself and not function properly and leave me stranded. And I lived in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have cell phones, and it was a good time. So thanks for letting me go down memory lane of terror of my first car that was terrible. But I learned how to work on cars, and it wasn't that bad. The man Curios, carry something. Sorry, butchered. What's the story on how you got the Malibu? Well, I actually have a full video. I'll put a link to that video if you want the full-on description, but the quick story is I was called to actually fix that car for a guy. He wanted to give it to his son for his high school car. And I showed up, I looked at the car, we went over stuff. I talked to the gentleman, realized he was not a car guy. I don't even know if he could change a tire. Maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. And I just shot it to him straight, and I said, this car, even if it's fixed up and it looks pretty, it still has a small block and old technology. You're gonna have to warm it up, and it's just an old car. It's gonna need some maintenance and a little bit of love to get your kid back and forth to school. And if you're not willing to kind of help him with those things, and he's not ultimately head over heels in love with the idea of having a car that he's just gonna bust his knuckles on all the time, it's not the car for you. And I told him to go get a Honda Civic 4-door so he could take the girls to the beach, and that he would be pissed when you bought it for him, and he would thank you the first time you took all the girls to the beach. And if he was gonna get rid of the car, I'd be interested in buying it. And he called me like 3 weeks later after that. I don't know if he actually bought the Honda Civic or not, but I bought the car. I'm pretty sure to this day his kid still hates me. And here it is. I was gonna actually flip it, and I was gonna buy, I want a 66 or 7 Nova. Those are like my favorite hot rods. And it didn't happen. The Malibu stayed and it stuck, and I think it's here for good. So that's what we get. Sorry guys, that's all I got. And we're just gonna drive it till the wheels fall off. And then I'll probably have to put it back on because I can't afford to buy another one. What got you into hot rods? And what is your dream car? So these are all from the same guy. So let's just go in order. What got me into hot rods was necessity of having a car. I grew up out in the high desert. Everything is like miles apart. It's a lot more populated now, but when I lived there, there was like, your neighbor was far, like deep. Like you had to like go ride your bicycle to your neighbor's house. And as soon as I got behind the wheel of a vehicle, anything motorized, mostly it started with like mini bikes and motorcycles, dirt bikes. But I got to the age where we could drive, and then now you could take all your idiot buddies with you, and that's way better than hanging one dude off the back of your dirt bike. Like you could take a whole group of goonies with you. And so that was what got me into cars, was the fact that it was awesome that you could take a bunch of people and all go together places. But then, oh, that sucked. Being able to do it quickly is way more fun. So the first car I had that was a hot rod was a 64 Impala that I used to think was just a drag race car. I had open headers and a small block. I think I had like 2 lug nuts on each tire, and I used to just give it hell. And I'd have a couple buddies that would come over, and we'd somewhat street race. We'd have to drive on the dirt roads to the road that was paved, and then we would race down that, and then I'd drive it back down the dirt road home before all the transmission fluid would run out because it used to leak viciously. So yeah, that was what got me into hot rods. I'm gonna go grab my questions that just flew under the bed, and then I'll be right back. Give me a second. Damn thing went floating away like Mary Poppins on me. So that's what got me into hot rods, was the necessity for a car, and then finding out the faster they go, the more fun they really are. I mean, that's just a fact. I don't care who you are. Dream car. So I would say my ultimate dream car, like if you want to sit and just stare at it, one of those cars, like the guys that like to wash their car and then just put it back and everybody sits around it, would be a Lincoln Zephyr, late 30s, early 40s Zephyr. Probably like a 40 Zephyr is badass, but anything like, 37 and up. I really like the 35 and 36 Ford 3-window coupe. Those are killer, but those would be stare-at cars, not driver cars. The fat fender cars are a pain in the ass because the fenders are you're sitting here, your fender's over there, and typically by the time you chop it and lower it and do a bunch of stuff, I don't think it'd be that great of a driving car, and it'd be stressful for me for one of those, but I'd like to have it to look at because there's lots of guys, I guess, that have cars, and that's what I would do with that. Other than that, the 66 or 67 Nova would be the freaking bee's knees, and by the time, I don't think I'll ever be able to afford one because they're so expensive now, and then, I don't know. But yeah, if I get a hold of one of those or both of those, I would be a happy camper. That and a monster freaking truck. I want a monster truck. That would be, I just want to borrow one. So Shane, if you ever watch this and you're like, hey, I really want somebody else to drive my monster truck, I'm your guy. I will drive it. I would try. I'd probably be terrible, but at least I'd be able to run stuff over in it. So yeah, lots of dream vehicles. From monster trucks to Zephyrs to 67 Chevys. All those bases. Just cover all those. Maybe we could put all those together. Like a 67 Nova monster truck with fenders. That would... stupid. Not a good idea. Lindsay Stump writes, what got you so involved in cars, and what is your dream car? So I think I pretty much covered those. What got me into cars was I lived in the middle of nowhere, and if you had a car, you could go places. And then obviously the dream car is a 67 Nova monster truck with Zephyr fenders on it. That's what I'm rolling. LT1 Vega GT has a paint question. Actually has several paint questions, so we'll cover those real quick. What is the difference between single stage and multi-stage paint jobs, and what is the best application for each? So really quick, I will just do this as fast as I can. For those of you guys that may be interested in painting stuff and are very confused, it is very confusing. So a single stage paint job and a two-stage paint job are still multi-stage chemical paint jobs, if that makes sense. You see everything that says 2K, that means like two part. So you always have part A and part B. It's usually like your color and what is it, like on a single stage it would be your toner and your color and the clear and everything's kind of all in one. And then there's a catalyst. You catalyze those and that's what kicks it off and makes it hard so you can polish it later on and it doesn't just become all goopy and crappy all over your car. That's a technical term for all you painters out there, by the way, the goopy crappy part. But the second one is a two-stage, which is your base coat, clear coat. So it's just your toner and your binders and all your things that basically give you your coverage and your color with your pearls and flakes and all your fun stuff. And then you come back over the top with a clear coat that is separate. And then the clear coat is a two-part deal you catalyze and put over the top. So your base coat technically is not catalyzed, your clear coat is. But in a single stage, you have to catalyze the color portion of it because your clear coat and your color are all mixed in one. So I hope that made sense. You can rewind it. It made sense to me, but yeah, so that's why it's confusing to people that are new, because it's always multiple parts. It's chemistry, and the difference between a single and a two-stage in shooting is single stage is like a rattle can. Everything's all in one, you shoot it, and what you get, your finish, you're done. A two-stage would be you shoot all the base coat on, and then you can still kind of mess with that if you have issues or fix it or go over it, make sure it's nice and even, and then you come back with your clear coat. And then that is the sticky portion that when you get your flies and you get all your trash stuck in it, that you start pulling your hair out because you know you just screwed yourself. So single stage, when you get it in there, and you can just put more stuff hopefully over the top and bury it, or you start pulling your hair out and you're screwed on that one too. Pretty much you paint stuff, you're gonna screw yourself at some point. That's all I'm saying. Best use for each one. Single stage, there's not a lot of uses in my opinion. I don't like shooting single stage. Although this truck is single stage, you can make it look nice, I guess. But I would say satin colors are good for single stage. Your undercarriage and stuff, chassis, things like that, satin black. Simple stuff for the most part. Anything with a finish or anything you want pretty is going to be done in a two-stage, two-part paint job. You can get single stage and pearl and metallic and everything, and if you have a booth in the right settings and a guy that knows what the hell he's doing, now they can pull it off. But for the most part, a two-stage paint or like a three-stage paint is where you're gonna have the banging paint job and people are gonna go, oh wow, that's awesome. Typically, the other thing that a single stage I will say is good for is solid colors. Nothing fancy, just solid. You want black, you want red, you want blue, just a solid toner color. You can get away with loading it up with a bunch of color as long as it is just straight pigment. There's nothing special, pearls or flakes or anything, and then you can come back and actually color sand the single stage at that point. Some people may argue, I've heard like you can't do it or you can do it and all kinds of stuff, but I've shot a couple single stage jobs and I've always cut and polished the single stage jobs because the only ones that I have shot single stage have been solid colors. Red, white, blue, boring. Okay, next question. Yeah, if you want boring stuff, you're gonna paint a tractor, use single stage. If not, sorry Roland, your truck looks amazing, but I guess white's fine. But anyway, let's move on. I'm just gonna get myself in trouble. Okay, I did this difference in the single stage. Harbor Freight paint guns, are they any good? And what's the need? Is there a need for an inline water separator? So those are two-part questions. So Harbor Freight paint guns are typically not very good. Although they do have a purpose. I use the purple gun. It's like a dual pack where you get like the big gun HVLP and then the small like touch-up gun in a kit for like $50. And then I usually take that because it comes with the 1.8 nozzle, which is like a fire hose. And I fill that with the poly primer. And then by the time that thing goes bad, I just throw it away. I have a whole video on that as well. And everybody yelled at me and told me just to clean my guns. But ultimately, once you use it X amount of times after a while, and yeah, I could sit here and clean it and make it last. But for 50 bucks, if I can get through like 2 or 3 cars with it, it's really, I'm going to go through more cleaning solo events than that gun's going to be worth, in my opinion. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a dirty painter. Dirty painter. But the little touch-up gun that comes with that isn't too bad. And then they make a little $30 jam gun that I actually have in the drawer that has got me out of on a pinch a couple times. But ultimately, the cheaper guns from Harbor Freight are going to take a lot more CFM, so you're going to need a big burly compressor to run it. When I first started, I had a 60-gallon compressor and it would barely keep up. I run an 80 now. If I could have an 800, I would do that. But yeah, so they're going to eat a lot more CFM. They don't atomize that well, but it's all within budget. And if you're brand new to painting, you're not going to be very good at painting anyway. Sorry, but you're probably not. You're going to struggle. The gun isn't going to help you. A nice gun would be more of a crutch. But if you can get a crappy gun to do a decent job, then you're off to the races. It's like an acoustic guitar. If you can play an acoustic guitar, make it sound decent, and it's a crappy guitar, once you get the nice one, you can make it sing. So think of it like that. Blocking techniques, how to make blocks for different curves, etc. So the blocking techniques vary, I guess, from panel to panel. If it's a big flat panel and you're trying to get it nice and flat depending on what stage you're in, I usually go with a longer block because a longer block is going to cover more surface area. So if you have imperfections that are further apart, a longer block is going to take those down evenly together. You know, if this was a surface and it was uneven and my block was small, it would go in and out. But if my block was long, it would have a harder time getting in and out of the grooves, and it would actually flatten it down better. And then ultimately, like on curves, I see guys who use soft blocks. I see the acrylic blocks. I mean, there's all kinds of different ones. But ultimately, for me, what I've found is, because I tried a bunch of different ones in the beginning, thinking that it would help improve my finish. But ultimately, it was experience, and it still is experience that gets me through. I mean, I could probably sand it with anything that's damn near flat or straight, and I could get a decent finish because I know how to feel the panels and what to do. I mean, that's ultimately what it boils down to, is the experience. And trust me, if you start painting or you want to paint your own project, by the time you're done, you're gonna have plenty of experience, because it takes forever to sand these things, by the way. And then, yeah, once you get all the hand stuff mastered, then you get on the air tools and you can start really zipping stuff down, and it makes life easier. But ultimately, it boils down to experience. So, real quick though, on the curves, I still use hard blocks and I just use shorter ones. So if it's more of a radius curve, I use a shorter hard block, and then I just roll with the curve and I go multi-directions on a rounded surface. Everybody always thinks the rounded surfaces and things are the hard things to get nice or to make nice. It's actually the big flat panels that are a pain in the ass. Like, if this thing was just a big flat billboard, it'd be 10 million times harder than if it was a big round ball to sand, believe it or not. So anyway, that's just my opinion. Blocking techniques. Oh, Christina Na, which is my wife, writes, can you buy your wife the 2016 Camaro she has her eye on? Well, we're gonna say that for another video, but you might be in luck, honey. We will see. We will find out on that one. Let's move on. Thank you for the question, by the way. I am photography. For your Q&A, when did you begin your journey into the type of work you do? So ultimately, I've been working on cars since I was a kid. I'd say 15, 16 years old or so. Before I had a driver's license, if you would give me keys to a car or I could steal them, I would drive it and try to do donuts. Like I said, I lived in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't care. And there was really nobody to really police you or do nothing out there anyway. So I've been driving cars for a lot longer than I've had a license. And I've enjoyed it the entire time. And what started me on the journey of doing this, building customs and classics, and ultimately all the skill set that I have doing it, was one, the love of cars and the passion for cars, but two, I'm actually a trained, I guess you want to call it trained, I'm a graphic designer by trade. I did that for like 10 years or something. And then the market fell out, the bottom fell out of the market, and we had the downturn and all that fun stuff. And ultimately, when I went to go back to work, nobody wanted to pay any money, And I was kind of sick of doing it, and I'm not really the best at spelling. I'm dyslexic and I don't read all that great. So it was kind of funny that I chose that as a profession because I struggled at it. I should have went to like photography or something, or I thought graphic design was more you design graphics, less typography, which there's a lot of type in graphic design, by the way, if you're looking to get into it, which I'm terrible at type. Anyway, did that for a while. When I went back to work, nobody wanted to pay. And I was like, you know what? If I'm not gonna make any money, I wanna do something I absolutely enjoy. And I encourage all of you guys to do that, not to focus on the money, do the stuff you wanna do. And that's what led me to what I do now, which is building cars. And I started roughly almost 10 years ago, one car at a time. And I haven't stopped since, and it's just grown and gotten bigger and better as my skill set has just grown. And that's it. You just find what you want to do and you run with it. Honestly, that is the magic. There's no, it could be photography, it could be you want to be a rock star, whatever it is. You just find what you're good at and give 110% to that. And the stuff, everybody always thinks like, oh, if I'm not good at that, I just need to work on this. No, not really. Just pick the stuff you're good at, and the stuff you're not good at, don't worry about that. Just get 20 million times better at the stuff you're good at, and life will happen. So anyway, that's the moral of the story. Last question, so I don't bore you guys to complete death, is JD956. What's your favorite pro tip for panels smooth as glass? What is your holy grail of project cars? So it's a two-part question. So my number one pro tip for smoothing out a panel, smooth as glass, is guide coat. You're not gonna, I mean, there's gonna be somebody on here, some internet yahoo that says, yeah, I could do it with, nothing, but guide coat ultimately is going to produce the result you need. And you need to trust it. That's my other pro tip. So use guide coat, and then when you see the guide coat, when you're blocking it and you're keeping the block flat and you're not trying to cheat, and there's a dark spot, and then you see shiny here and shiny here, you have the two high spots in that dark spot. Well, don't cheat the block and rub it out. You need to address it and then re-guide coat it and fix it. And that's how you get flat panels, is you put the guide coat on, you do the proper blocking technique, and then when it doesn't turn out like you think it should have, you don't cheat yourself and try to just make the guide coat disappear and think that it's ready for paint, because it's not. You gotta continue to do it until the guide coat goes away with the proper blocking technique, and that's how you get flat panels. So you pretty much sand until your fingertips are bleeding and gone and you're cursing, and then you continue to do it until you feel like a crazy meth addict, because you're nitpicking stuff that in your brain doesn't technically exist, but the guide code's telling you it does. And then after that you sand it one more time, and that's how you get a flat ass panel. That's a fact. I don't know if it is or not. I'm just throwing it out there, last question, what is your holy grail of project cars? My holy grail of project cars is a project car owner with just unlimited pockets, because that's really what it is. I mean, I guess if it's from a work standpoint, I would need a guy that would show up and go, this is what I want, money's no object, and I just want to see if you can do it, and I want to see the best you could do. That for me would be killer. I mean, because then the sky's the limit, and I wouldn't have to factor in budget, or maybe we could do this or that. It could just be like, what's the craziest stuff I could come up with and actually pull off and deliver on. So that would be, my ultimate project car as far as a customer would go. And the ultimate project car for me, I don't really have one, man. I know that a lot of guys, when I first started this, that's what it was all about for me, was I build these cars because I want to do the things that I'm doing. And I still do that to this day. I'd like to drag race, I like autocross, I like all these things. And I like putting those types of cars and things together for people, but I can also do a show car or whatever. So for myself though, it's whatever's in front of me. I mean, I don't have one that I'm like, oh, if I just had this project, because everything I just make it a project. It could be perfect, and then I'll rip it apart and try to fix it and make stuff better. So at the moment, the Malibu is the number one project, and one of these days, if I grow out of that, we can get a big tire car, or if I have enough money to get back on the autocross, all that, I'd get a C5 or some sort of affordable Corvette. Not a Corvette guy, but bang for buck car, you're buying a lot of car for a little bit of money, and you could drive the wheels off that thing and have a hell of a time for under 10 grand. You can't build, I see all the C10 trucks and the guys building trucks. I have the F100 that I put together for autocross. I had so much money in that truck, and I'd get outrun by any good driver in a vet all day in that truck, just because of what it is. It was fast for a truck, but ultimately, you got to pick what you want to do. If you want to go drive a race car, just go buy a race car and drive it. You know, if you want to drive a hot rod or whatever, you just kind of got to stick to what you want to do. But ultimately, I don't have some project, more of like a job project. I would need somebody to step up to the plate and just give me, you know, carte blanche and let me do crazy stuff. That would be amazing, because that would make every day really, really exciting. But ultimately, I like cars that I can just take and use and improve. So that's my ultimate project, is just something that you're always improving and always working and tinkering on. That's why I like drag racing. There's always room for improvement, and racing in general. It never ends. You can always improve it. And that's what I enjoy, because I'm a tinkerer. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it didn't bore you to death, because I will just sit here and talk to myself all day long. But yeah, those are my questions. If you guys have any other questions, personal, non-personal, I know a lot of you guys don't know, but I build cars from the ground up. I can pretty much put an entire car together by myself. And I don't do interior though, and I don't do glass, but everything else we can kind of accomplish. And a lot of people kind of know me for paint work. So any question on anything, if I don't know the answer, I will tell you that I don't know, or I will find somebody that kind of knows, and I'll let you know what they said, because I'm not a guy that knows everything. I try to do a little bit of everything well, but I can't do it all, and I can't be the best at everything. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please get your questions submitted. You can do it on, Instagram DMs, or actually just leave them in the comments here. We'll just make life easy. And then next time around, we'll do another Q&A. And hopefully I'll answer your questions. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm out.